Hi, brothers and sisters. How are you doing today? You are all welcome to Apostle Paul Taiwo TV channel. Please, if you have not, kindly subscribe to this channel. Click the red button and also click on the notification icon so that whenever I drop a new video, you'll be able to see it and you'll be able to be blessed by the messages that I'm sending. God bless you as you do so in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. This message you're about to listen to is a great message. Listen to it, and I pray that God will bless you as you listen to it in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Chapter 7: Destroying the Christians' Weapons. Sleep. In this war against the church, the devil had asked us to promote spiritual sleep in the lives of Christians. The spiritual sleep we were supposed to create in the Christian life was to remove a lifestyle of fasting and prayer. Yet, the Bible urges us to fast and pray. When I met the devil for the first time, he told me that I should never sleep again. Today Christians suffer because they like to sleep heavily like the people of the world. And yet, even the Lord Jesus prayed at night. A Christian who has a night prayer lifestyle will be victorious, and he will be victorious during the day. We must understand the demons and witches do not sleep at night. When people sleep, the witches are in full operation. The consequences of their nocturnal activities are manifested during the day. Generally, the people of this world, including the Christians, do not understand that events and incidents that happened in the day are only manifestations of all the things that took place at night. Most of the time, the wizards watch a screen or mirror how would they happen, and depending on the current of the day, they will set ambushes, blockades, and traps based on the picture of the day that is projected and advanced. We see that the wizards' activities in the night manifest themselves in the day. Besides, the Christian who wakes up early in the morning for prayer will control the day and prosper. And in order to cause the believer to sleep deeply, 3 demons are deployed at the gate of their house, which are the spirit of weakness, the spirit of sleep, and the spirit of heaviness. The Bible says in Matthew 13:25-26, "But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and went his way." 26 "But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also." The Bible says in Proverbs 20:13, "Love not sleep, lest you come to poverty, open your eyes, and you shall be satisfied with bread." Sacrificial giving. In addition to this, we were instructed to remove liberality, the offering, and the sacrifice in the life of the children of God. The notion of sacrifice comes from God. The devil, who is a former resident of the celestial world, copied all that he saw and left in the heavenly region. For this reason, the world of Satan works with sacrifice. To ascend and gravitate to higher levels in the spiritual world, one will have to offer sacrifice, whether it is in the kingdom of Satan or God. The devil's instruction and command that was the basis of our operation stipulated that we should not allow the Christians to serve their God with their goods, otherwise they will be blessed and they will be great. Thus we were instructed never to allow the Christian to serve God with his goods for fear that he would become rich. It is dangerous when a Christian combines prayer and sacrifice of giving. In the Bible, when Noah offered a sacrifice that pleased God, the latter spoke and concluded a new alliance with him. The Bible said in Genesis 8:20-22, "And Noah built an altar to the Lord, and took of every clean beast, and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar." 21 "And the Lord smelled a sweet smell, and the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, neither will I again smite any more everything living, as I have done." 22 "While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold, and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease." Beloved, you must know that prayer will never replace the sowing, the offerings, and the sacrifice. You can pray as much as you want. Unless you offer sacrifice and offering, you will remain in poverty. I am here to tell you how your life is destroyed and how to repair it. Indeed, fasting and prayer will never replace the sacrifice and offerings. The devil told us not to allow the children of God to offer sacrifices for fear that they will be blessed by God. The devil is working to make Christians poor. In the spiritual world, the devil told us that we should never allow Christians to serve God with their goods because it is impossible to touch a Christian who serves God with his goods. In truth, in the invisible world, offering and the sacrifices speak within the framework of spiritual struggle. When we visited the houses of the Christians who give to God in the night, instead of their houses, we found ourselves in front of lakes and water. Their houses disappear at night, yet they were visible during the day. It is for this reason that the devil militates to prevent people of God from serving the Lord with their goods. Indeed, the offering speaks in favor of the sower. Assembling of the saints. On the other hand, it was necessary to remove in Christian life the tradition of diligently attending the gathering of believers. As David said, "One day in your presence is better than 1,000 elsewhere," Psalm 84:10. It was necessary to remove the joy and satisfaction of being in the gathering of believers in the presence of God. Praise, worship, adoration. In addition to this, the devil had instructed us to prevent Christians from spending time in praise and adoration. He told us, you should never allow them to prioritize praise and worship. Don't allow them to have personal moments of worship and praise for fear that they would be warned and delivered. Indeed, as far as the devil is concerned, there is liberation and deliverance in praise and adoration as God himself goes down. The Bible says in Acts 16:25-26, "And at midnight Paul and Silas prayed and sang praises to God, and the prisoners heard them." 26 "And suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were opened, and every one's bands were loosed. And this because of the praise." It was absolutely necessary to destroy the devotion of worship and praise in the daily life of the believer. We worked in order to prevent the child of God from having a personal moment of praise and adoration. It was necessary to turn their attention to other preoccupations relative to earthly things. Prayer life. One day Satan told me it is imperative to fight the prayer life of Christian. The devil said, in the Bible, Daniel was fasting and praying for a month. As soon as God had answered his prayer, I had to block the angel Gabriel for a month in the second heaven. If I was able to oppose the prayer of Daniel, who was so devoted, we will have to fight against the prayer life of Christian. In order to capture a Christian, it will be necessary to neutralize his prayer life first. All this spiritual sleep that the devil sowed in the Christian life, and once Christians begin to find it difficult to go to the church and to serve his God, when he can no longer pray and fast, and as soon as he gave up the way of life of offering and sacrifice, it is in this moment that we were free to enter and destroy him. Chapter 8, Capturing People's Stars. Brother, we must know that every day and night, the demons wander the streets, the avenues of the world. Certain of these demons travel the earth physically, they are well dressed well at night. There are men and women who wander in luxury hotels and bars to sleep with humans and capture their stars. Once I was initiated in occultism. Whenever I meet a person, I would see a spiritual vision to determine whether the individual has the mark of God on his forehead or not. Those who belong to Christ have the mark of Christ on their foreheads. We were in war with the Christians. I used to see the bodyguards placed around Christians deployed by their God. People that are born again Christian have 2 bodyguards on their side. These angelic bodyguards are often in military uniforms similar to the conventional armies of the earth, but these angelic soldiers are very tall and sturdy. They never leave the children of God and they follow them continually. Brother, the devil targets men and women who have the mark of God and the promise of God. You must understand that the war that the devil perpetrated against your life did not begin in adulthood, but rather from the womb of your mother. Indeed, while we were still in the maternal womb, the devil was trying to kill us and steal our stars, which are the resources and destinies that God gave us. The devil declared war on us while we were in the maternal womb. He wanted to kill us and capture our stars. The battle in the life of a man does not start in adult age, but rather in the maternal womb. In fact, there are 3 stages of war elaborated by Satan in the life of the man. The first battle against your life began in the prenatal period when you were in the maternal womb. The second stage of the war in your life is in the postnatal period and childhood, and the last stage of the war in the life of man on the earth begins in the period of marriage. If Satan cannot destroy you in the maternal womb through miscarriage, he will wait until childhood. So many infants are disturbed by various diseases sent by the devil to interrupt their lives and capture their stars. When you notice that your childhood is characterized by repetitive disease, it is quite possible that you have a bursting and frightening star and a strong aura. If the devil cannot destroy you during childhood in order to steal your aura and destiny, he will wait for the adult and marriage period. He will resort to illegal and illicit sexual intercourse in order to capture your star. Many have compromised and destroyed their destinies because of sexual perversion. Sex is a strategy that Satan uses in order to neutralize the stars and the destinies of men and women. Joseph had a bright star that was brighter than those of his brothers. He was destined for greatness and leadership. This is the reason Satan deployed the women to seduce him, so that he can neutralize his destiny and capture his star. As soon as I began to work for the devil, the latter instructed me to locate the stars of men and women to capture them. Every day in the morning, I got up very early. I placed a mystical product on my eyes, my nostrils, and 2 ears in order to be able to detect and locate the newly pregnant ladies in the neighborhood. These products that I had put on my eyes, my ears, and nostrils allowed me to detect early pregnancies. I mean, as soon as a woman in the neighborhood got pregnant, long before she knew she was pregnant, I was the first to know because of the mystical product on my nostrils. I could feel and smell early pregnancy. I could detect early pregnancy long before the man and the woman discover that they are expecting a baby. I could detect that a lady is pregnant the very day she had sexual contact with her partner. Since I was a star hunter, I went to the public places, to the streets, the markets in our town in order to locate newly pregnant women. As soon as I found out that a woman is pregnant thanks to the incantatory prayer, I could obtain information about the pregnant woman. And once I have information about the newly pregnant woman at night during a night gathering, I would inform the hierarchy that a specific woman in a specific neighborhood got pregnant. In fact, every day from midnight to 3 a.m., there is a gathering of wizards. On the basis of this fact, I would advise the Christian to pray at this time. Once a report about the newly pregnant woman is filed and submitted to the spiritual authority, the god of this world, the devil was supposed to recommend investigation and calculations so that we can determine how far the baby's star in the womb of the pregnant woman would shine. Every time a woman is pregnant, an investigation and inquiry were launched. On one hand, in order to determine the identity of the baby who will be born. On the other hand, to know the intensity of his star so that we can capture his star in case it is radiant and flamboyant. It is necessary to know that 600 years before the birth of Jesus Christ, the world of Satan launched an investigation and inquiry about his star in the sky. The Bible says in Matthew 2:1-4, "Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, 2 saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and are come to worship him." 3 When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. 4 And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where Christ should be born. The purpose of the investigation and inquiry which we carried out on the baby that will be born was to determine the brightness and intensity of his star. Thanks to the name of the mother and her date of birth, we were performing a calculation to determine how much the star of the child that will be born was going to shine. So this calculation allowed us to determine the intensity of the star of the baby who will be born, whether his aura will be strong or weak. The identity of the baby that was to be born was also revealed by this calculation. Beloved, even before you have entered the womb of your mother, God had already prepared what you become, where you will live, who you will marry, and what kind of source of income you are supposed to have. Once I discover the identity of the baby that will be born in the intensity of its star, I was supposed to report to the devil the conclusion and the result of the investigation and calculations performed by our brotherhood. If the investigation and calculation indicate that your star will shine brighter, the devil would come up with countermeasures to prevent you from becoming what God has planned for you. Basically, there are people who are supposed to be the cornerstone of their families. As soon as we determined the intensity of your star, we were to file a report to the devil. Once the devil discovers that your star is bright, he will trigger war and battle against your life while you are still baby and blood in the womb of your mother. The aim of the countermeasure set up by the devil is to prevent the birth of the child who is in the womb of his mother and the capture of his star. In fact, once the investigation and calculation indicate that the child who will be born will be great in life, the devil would send a servant to bury a fetish around his mother in order to cause a miscarriage. This will interrupt the life of the child because the devil wants to get the shining and brilliant star. The star is the destiny and greatness that God has made available to the man that is born on earth. The devil, being poor, works to stop pregnancy in order to get a hold of the star of the child to be born. Thus, we were burying fetuses in the streets to cause miscarriages and to capture the stars of babies who are still in the bellies of their mothers. Our obligation was to kill the babies and take control of their stars, which is the wealth that God gave them. We must understand that the kingdom of darkness is often the first to know when a woman is pregnant, while the man and woman who had sex have not yet noticed the pregnancy. In this war against early pregnancy, however, we have come to realize that God was protecting babies because they have destinies and missions on earth. In case we fail to stop the birth of the baby, the devil had already drawn the plan for a childhood battle. The second stage of the war in the life of a man is childhood. When the child who has just been born is destined for greatness, you will notice that the infant is threatened with chronic diseases deployed by Satan in order to end his life and capture his star. Many people have a childhood characterized by diseases of all kinds. We have here battles triggered by Satan against the destiny of the child because the child who is born has a bright star and he is supposed to be great in life. This is precisely the reason God protects the children. The Bible says in Matthew 2:7-14, then Herod, when he had privately called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. 8 And he sent them to Bethlehem, and said, Go and search diligently for the young child, and when you have found him, bring me word again, that I may come and worship him also. 9 When they had heard the king, they departed, and, see, the star, which they saw in the east, went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. 10 When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. 11 And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down, and worshipped him, and when they had opened their treasures, they presented to him gifts, gold, and frankincense, and myrrh. 12 And being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. 13 And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appears to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt, and be you there until I bring you word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. 14 When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt. In case we do not succeed to kill the child at a young age, the devil would order us to wait for the third stage of war, which is adulthood period. Once the child becomes an adult, the devil would instruct his agent to establish sexual relations with the target. In fact, sexual intercourse is the means by which the stars and fate of many are captured. Many people have destroyed their lives by having sex with men and women who were actually a satanic agent. Your star is your destiny. Your star is your wealth, and it is like the light that lights your life. Once your star is captured, there will be darkness in your life. When I was a wizard, once I steal a person's star when the customer came to me for money, marriage, success, I was transferring the wealth and chances that are in that star that I stole to my client to answer their need. Every morning I had to anoint my hands and my eyes to steal people's stars. Once I get anointed, I will start wandering the neighborhood. And as soon as I noticed a man with a brightening star, the moment I noticed the intensity of his star, I would hurry to greet him by holding his hand, and I will engage in a friendly conversation while looking at his eyes to steal his star. We live in a world of exchange. In this war, there are also people who do not know Christ but are protected because God knows that at some point they will come to Him. You must take note that a star is something that cannot be destroyed but can be stolen and used. We can steal your star, but when you come to Christ, you can still take it back by prayer. Once we steal your stars, we would hide it in different places. Besides, if you join a church whose pastor is in occultism, your star is in danger. So there is a permanent conflict and a war on earth between the force of evil and the force of good. As soon as a Christian enters the war and retrieves his star, we will record the loss, failure, or defeat. It should be noted that it is not only men who have stars and destinies but also countries have stars and destinies. Many countries have deviated from their destiny. Congo is a great country in the spiritual world. This is why the devil fights to prevent it from fulfilling its mission and to play its role. The devil works to keep the church divided in order to prevent the country from rising. Moreover, the stars of different people differ in terms of intensity. The stars of certain people shine more than the other, and the devil works to capture the stars of people in order to give them to those who come to him for promotion, success, and wealth. When a Satanist wants to become richer, he will seek to steal stars from a person. He will try to sleep with women in order to use her star. The Bible says in Genesis 37:9, and Joseph dreamed yet another dream, and told it his brothers, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and, behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. There are 7 stars that we fought in the world of Satan. The first star is the star of marriage. The devil told us that marriage is the institution of God and it gives glory to God. So we have to fight it? When a woman had a wedding star, she will have a great marriage. She will not suffer in marriage. She will choose among many men who will come to her because of her star, which is a lamp that shines and illuminates around. Therefore many will be attracted by this light. Even the devil will send his servant because the lamp that is shining will attract attention. Therefore, the lady will need the will of God to choose a husband. She will have to take the time to pray and ask for signs to God because the devil also gives dreams. Indeed, marriage can change your life for the better and for the worse. Many people are in a marriage, but they keep saying and repeats constantly in their hearts, if I only knew. When a woman has a wedding star, even if she married a poor man, her star will make her husband become rich. The Bible says in Proverbs 18:22, whoever finds a wife finds a good thing, and obtains favor of the Lord. The second star that we fought against was the star of work. There are people who are destined to excel in the work environment because they have a star of work. The third star we were fighting was the star of sympathy. There are people who are supposed to be loved in life and society. They will get favor and access. Everyone will love them. But once this star is stolen, the person will experience rejection in life and society. You will wonder why people reject you and are not interested in you. But when you have this star, people will open doors for you. The fourth star we fought was the star of offspring. There are men and women who are supposed to have a lot of children. You will notice that all their children are blessed. They've all been to college, and they all have good work. But in case the star of the offspring is stolen, you'll see a family with beautiful girls who are not married. Because this star has been stolen, you will see a family of men resorting to crime like armed robberies and drug trafficking. Besides this, there is also the leadership star. There are people who are born to rule even if they did not go to university. This is the kind of star that Joseph had. He was supposed to rule. When he went to Egypt, he ended up ruling. Jesus is the King of Kings and was supposed to reign thanks to his star. The last star is the star of ministry. This is the star that the devil hates most. There are people who are born on earth with the mission of being a minister of God and bring light to humanity. Whenever we detected that a child that is to be born will become a minister, there was war. The devil will fight him because he knows that the child would fight his kingdom. So we had to try to kill the child. This is the star of greatness and elevation. Chapter 9 Servant Spirits. We can see the implication of this star in the book of Exodus 23:25-26. And you shall serve the Lord your God, and he shall bless your bread, and your water, and I will take sickness away from the middle of you. 26 There shall nothing cast their young, nor be barren, in your land, the number of your days I will fulfill. The devil told us, you should never allow Christians to serve God with their goods. They should not make sacrifices and offerings so that God's promise in Exodus 23:25-26 will be prevented. In Exodus 23:26, God said that, the number of your days I will fulfill. It implies that there will be people whose number of days was not fulfilled. That means, they will die prematurely. It was precisely the spirits of those who died prematurely that Satanists and occultists try to buy or capture. I remember that every Saturday we went to the cemetery with Satanists and false pastors. These pastors of the big churches in the city are satanic pastors. We went there to buy souls who died prematurely as a result of human sacrifices and witchcraft. We were buying spirits of people killed in witchcraft. These victims of witchcraft were sold in the different cemeteries of the city. Pastors bought and deployed these human spirits around their churches, and these human spirits who had become servant spirits were working to attract people to come to the church of this satanic pastor. These spirits make people fall when pastors pray for them. During prayer, there will be many people falling and people who speak demonic languages. The devil has set up his throne in many of the churches. The devil has a database of all the churches in the world. He told me that 80% of the churches belong to him. Only 20% of the churches belong to Jesus. I remember when we were about to buy the victims of witchcraft in the cemetery at night on Saturday, we saw two angels of light stationed at the graves of those who have died in Christ, and we could not approach their graves. The intensity of the blinding light from these angelic militaries positioned around the graves of the dead in Christ repelled and repulsed us. These angels are positioned to keep the remains of the dead in Christ until the day of the resurrection of the dead. Apart from the cemetery, I went to the general hospital in the capital frequently to buy the bodies of dead babies that I took in the satanic world, to offer them to the devil who loves to consume them. It must be remembered that for the devil to enter the life of a man to destroy it, a door must be opened. Men routinely indulge in behavior that are gateways for the devil to enter and touch their lives. I said that I was walking around the city to find people who had glittering stars, and when I saw a man or a woman with a bright star, I would even get out of my car. I would go to the person for a handshake in order to capture his star. If the person was a woman, I tried to sleep with her in order to capture her star. I sought to sleep with virgin women because the blood that was going to flow was their star. I have always said, you must not allow a stranger to shake your hand just like that. You must also avoid letting people impose their hands on your head because they can capture your star by laying hands on you. In the spiritual world, when we captured people's stars, we dress these victims in black clothes, and we throw them in spiritual prisons and nothing will work in their lives. This is why you can see a beautiful lady who has trouble finding a husband because she probably slept with someone who stole her star. In fact, every morning the satanic world was diverting money in my room that I had to use for the destruction of men and women. But the devil money is cursed. I used to spread this money all over my car in order to trap women who run behind men for money. One day in the city, I was driving in my Jeep. At once I saw a very beautiful lady. I proposed to give her a lift. Although she was with her sister, she accepted my offer. Today ladies do not hold back, especially when money is involved. They do not realize the dangers of following a stranger that you don't know because of money. So many of the ladies have destroyed and shortened their lives because of money. It is necessary to avoid accepting the money of people that you don't know. When I was driving to the city in my car, I had a cat and a lot of money spread all over in the car. I transported this lady and her sister to their neighborhood and I dropped them. But while I was moving away from her place, she kept looking at me. In the end, I called her and I asked her. I said, "Lady, What is the problem? She said to me, "Sir, there is money everywhere in your car, but how can you let me go like that?" I said, "Young lady, if you needed money, you should tell me and ask for it." I said to the lady, "I'm going to give you money but on the condition that you allow my cat to suck your breast." To my great surprise, she accepted my offer because she wanted money. Afterward, I gave her the devil money that was cursed. She could not anticipate the destruction that will come from it. But it was at night when she went off to sleep that her breast began to swell. She began to suffer unbearable pain. As the days passed, her situation worsened and deteriorated to a point where the family became worried. Then her sister, who was present the day I gave her money, decided to reveal everything. She told the family, "Not long ago, we met a gentleman in the city who proposed to give us a lift. As soon as we got into his car, we found that there was a lot of money scattered everywhere, and he also had a cat. When the latter had dropped us at the house, the big sister asked him to give her money, but the latter demanded that his cat suck the breast of the big sister in order to receive the money." When the family heard this, there was consternation and stupefaction. After this girl revealed what happened on that day, she died on the following day. As soon as she died, her spirit came out of her body and landed in my lodge, and she became my servant. Days later, it was her eldest sister who died because of pain. When she died, her spirit came out of her body and landed in my lodge like her sister. They both became my servants. They were at my service. Brother, this world belongs to Satan. The protection is only in Jesus Christ. Here is the terrible and macabre reality to which our sisters are exposed to. The advice that I give to my sisters is simple: avoid taking money from persons that you do not know. Every day I received satanic money in my room which I used for the destruction of lives. These victims of witchcraft sacrifice could not go to the abode of the dead. They were servant spirits serving me in fetishism. I constantly needed human spirits so that they could serve me. I deployed them in the city so that they can bring the customers. When the pastors and the managers of shops came to me in order to have more members and customers, I always gave them the spirits of dead people who were supposed to be working for them. On the other hand, they deployed and positioned these spirits of the dead in front of their stores and their churches so that they would attract the customers and the members. If you see a shop always full in the district and attracting customers, it is quite likely that the manager resorted to occultism and probably works with the human spirits of people who have already died who are attracting customers for him. Because of this, I had to go to the cemetery each Saturday, to buy the spirits of men who have been victims of human sacrifice. Indeed, the men and women who are killed by witchcraft do not go to the abode of the dead but rather in the astral world where they become servant spirits. We have to know that in the astral world of witchcraft, there is a thriving industry of slavery, where men and women who are the victims of witchcraft are sold and bought in the marketplace of souls. Many men and women who are killed in witchcraft are sold and bought in the slave market. Some of them are working in the field as farmers. Many who died have found themselves in the slavery of the world of wizards. Some of these victims are deployed in front of the shops in order to influence the customers to enter and buy. Chapter 10: The Fall and Rise of a Rich Man. The devil is poor, which is why he is a thief. He scours the earth to identify the rich men and steal their money. One day the devil came to tell us that he had seen a man at Mombasa in Kenya. He told us, "I wandered on the earth. I dived on the earth when I saw this rich man in Kenya. I want you to visit him. You must devalue his accounts, you will take everything and leave nothing. You must steal his wealth and empty his account. As part of this operation, you will travel to Mombasa every day to destroy this man's finance." We were a team of international wizards. There are different types of wizards. There are wizards who operate only in specific streets. There are those who work in a specific neighborhood. There are also wizards working in specific cities and nations. But I was the leader of this international visiting team who works everywhere on the earth. As soon as we began this operation, without delay, we visited this man in the port city of Mombasa. We stumbled on this gentleman who was the boss of a local bank. When we arrived at this man's place, we began by photographing this man while he was sleeping in his house. Most often before taking a fight against a Christian or a pagan, we photographed the person in a mystical way. But nevertheless, although this man was not a Christian, we could not destroy him. In principle, as long as a man lived his life according to the rules and the law, so long as he does not break the taboos, and as long as he did not open a door for us to enter, it will be difficult to destroy him. Yet this man could not know that there were forces of evil that were plotting his destruction. So a lot of people suffer because of conspiracy and plot against their lives. Evil witch doctors do not tolerate to see people prospering and experiencing joy and happiness on earth. Whenever they see a happy man, they would quickly get to work in order to take joy and harmony and replace it with suffering. Furthermore, since I was the leader of this international wizarding group, I had to resort to advanced methods in order to catch this man who apparently was escaping our plot. I told my colleagues, to neutralize this man, we will have to be in Mombasa. We must start by getting him dismissed. They asked, how will we proceed to that? Suddenly, I took a cat and I killed it. Then I took a bone in its body that is used in witchcraft, and I distributed it to my colleagues. This bone allowed us to come to his house invisibly. One day while this man was in the bank working, we went to visit him. First of all, we started by placing the bone of the cat on our feet, which made us invisible. We went into the bank where he was working in his office where he was, since we were invisible, and no one could see us. As soon as we entered the office of this man, we could see that he was sitting in his office and he was working in front of the computer, but he could not see us. We were lurking behind him while he was working. Given the fact that he was without Jesus, he was unprotected and unsecured. We were there in his office with him as he could not see us. So we observed and contemplated all that he did as a routine without getting noticed. When he finished, he came out of his office and he closed the door without knowing that we were there. We stayed in this office while he got home. Once he got out, we took the key to the place where he was keeping the money of the bank and we stole the money that was in the trunk that was the reserve of this bank. We took all the money kept in this trunk and we went away. The next day, when he was back in his office, he could not find the money in the secure vault where he was guarding it. The gentleman was in a panic and he was alarmed. He called another officer of the bank, who came to see the disappearance of the reserve in this trunk. Since the money was missing without a reasonable explanation, he was incriminated by his superior. Over time the decision was taken from the authority to dismiss him. His superior contemplated the option to seize his possessions and the option of having him arrested. While they were considering these options, they decided not to seize his goods and not to prosecute him because he worked in this bank for so many years. Later I went to inform the devil about his dismissal. The devil told me, "Congratulations, my son. It's just the first step. You are going all the way with him. You must not feel compassion for him, no forgiveness and no love." Someday later, as we gathered together in our brotherhood of international wizards, we decided to steal his savings and economy. We decided to empty the money in his accounts. Quickly, we sent a demon into his house so that he could steal his checkbook. The demon went to his house and robbed his checkbook and brought it to us. We took our time to make checks of large amounts, and we signed with his signature that we had copied. Later, he was warned by the bank that huge sums had been withdrawn from his account and that there was his signature on these checks. He went to complain in the bank, but he was not able to recover this money that was stolen mystically. After these losses, he changed his signature and his security details. Despite this change, we still managed to get his password and security details. As the man had changed the password and security detail, we gathered again in order to plot his downfall. This time around, we resolved to take everything. So we copied his new signature, and in the end, we were able to steal huge amounts of his money. This time we took all the money from his account. I reported to the devil that we had emptied his economy. He lost all his money. The devil said to me, "Congratulations, my son, you did well, but it is not finished. You have to go all the way with him. You have to choke and sift him, he must suffer." Beloved, when the world of Satan targets you, when they declare war against you, they will never leave you until you are overwhelmed and down. And if you are a Christian and they are failing to reach you, they will wait patiently for years until the door is opened. They will be patient, hoping that you will one day open a door that will allow them to attack you. While we were serving the devil, we had become cold and ruthless because the devil destroyed empathy, compassion, and love in us. During the gathering of our fraternity, I told my colleagues, given that we have succeeded in robbing his money, now we have to destroy his cars because he has 4 cars in his garage. Quickly that night, we traveled to the residence of this gentleman. Each of us took his cars. We started driving them mystically, all over the world. You must understand that if you are not in Christ during the night, the wizards in the neighborhoods can take your car and drive them all night all over the city in a mystical way. As a result, it will not last. There will be a lot of breakdowns. This man's cars broke down because our group of wizards drove them every day at night all over the world. So while the people are sleeping at night, the wizards come into people's garage and take their cars and drive them all night long. A lot of cars that people parked in their compound were driven in the night by wizards. As a result, these cars broke down. Considering that we were driving the cars of this man at night, there were breakdowns that multiplied. He ended up selling all these cars. As a result, he started using public transport. When I reported it to the devil, he said to me, "Congratulations, my son. You did very well. You must not have pity and forgiveness for him. You must go with him to the end." From the beginning, the devil had made us understand that to serve him effectively, we should be void of love, mercy, and forgiveness. We were bereft of compassion. In the end, we came at night and we painted the man's house with feces. He could not see it. As a result, this man started to sell all the houses he had. Let me warn you, once you are under the satanic attack, you will enter a lifestyle of selling all you have to in order to survive. In fact, when you sell everything in order to survive, you are obviously under the demonic attack. When this man decided to sell his houses because of poverty, we could listen to his conversation with his wife in their bedroom. He said to his wife, "Given the situation we are going through, we have to sell our houses in order to have a bit of money." But while he was talking to his wife in their bedroom, we were listening perfectly to their conversation thanks to the installation of the antenna that we had deployed in his house. So all the conversation of their project and the aspiration that they had was recorded and relayed by our antenna to our surveillance operators. Thus, we heard this man talking to this woman and suggesting that he should sell a house because he could not bear the pain anymore. The man said, "We have to sell a house so that we can trade and come out of this situation." We could hear them thanks to our antenna, which was a spider web in their roof that we had installed since the beginning of the operations in this house. We also put these antennas, which were spider web, in the roof of the houses of the children of God in order to listen to the conversation about their projects. Often in the network of espionage and intelligence set up around the houses of the Christians, we learn about their aspiration and purpose. We also spread these webs in the streets to capture people and to put them in a spiritual prison. People who are caught in this way are put in jail. So when this man wanted to sell his house, we met in the nocturnal meeting in order to determine the price that this house was to be sold. In fact, he had a beautiful house, but yet we had worked in order to cause people to refuse to buy it. Given that people refused to buy the house, he ended up lowering the price. As people still refused to buy, he lowered to the amount we decided at night. This natural man did not know that he was a victim of manipulation and sorcery. We had already determined the price he was supposed to sell his house. He sold his house at a price we had agreed at night. As the devil insisted that we should not leave him, he ended up selling all of his houses. As soon as I informed the devil, who is the enemy of man, the latter began to laugh mockingly. He congratulated us and encouraged us to continue strangling the life of this poor man. The man ended up selling all his houses and he started to sleep in a garage and he was crying. And while he was crying, we were looking at him in a magical screen in the satanic world. While he was crying, we were laughing and mocking him. He cried and said, "How can a man like me end up in this situation?" While he was crying, there were fun and mockery in the world of Satan. Beloved, when you are in pain, you must never cry. You must pray and seek the face of the Lord. Every time you fall victim to the ambush of a wizard, you will be subjected to mockery, taunting, and laughter. Every time people cried because of our attack, and when they suffered, we laughed and we declared victory. The suffering and the pain of humanity is the victory and celebration of Satan. When people suffer and fall sick, the wizards are happy and they declare victory because the devil and his servants delight in the suffering of humanity. While this man and his family slept in this garage, it was so cold in Mombasa that his children began to get sick because of the cold. It was then this man thought of a house in the bush that he had bought long ago. Although it was an abandoned house in the bush, this was the only option that was in front of him. So this man left the city and started living in a house abandoned in the bush. When I reported to Satan about this, he began to laugh and told me, "Congratulations, my son, but do not leave him alone. You must reduce him to nothing." This man cried because his children had trouble eating. It was in this state of confusion when he was reduced to nothingness that he began to think about God. He was walking towards a neighboring village when finally he found a church and he entered. After this service, he explained his situation to the pastor. The pastor prayed for him. He urged him to be faithful and to always be present in the service. When he went back, he explained to his wife that he had found a church but the church was not in a good condition. The woman said to him, "Whatever the state of this church, we will attend." The first day they went to the church, the pastor preached. And then he explained to the church that he had to buy the place where the church rented. He needed 6 people to contribute 1 million each. Nobody got up. But this man stood up and he told the pastor that he will give all the money. When this man got up, his wife tried to stop him. His wife was laughing because she knew that her husband had nothing left. We were watching all this in the satanic world in a magic mirror and we laughed and laughed at this man because we had already finished all his money in his account. However, this man was determined. He made this commitment to build this church. He traveled to the city to his former bank where he was fired in order to borrow the money. It was possible because the man who had replaced him was one of the employees he had hired personally. As soon as this director of the bank saw this man who was his former chief, he started crying because he was in a bad state. His shoes and his clothes were bad. He told the director, "I came to borrow a few $1,000,000, yet this man did not have any money." The Bible says that we are crazy because of Christ. This man said that he will repay the money. Once he was given the money, he hid from his wife. Later in the church, the pastor reminded the church that someone had promised to give millions. This man stood up and walked to the front. He took the money out of his shorts. When his wife saw him taking the money out of his shorts, she was surprised. When we saw this, we reported to Satan that this man had started going to the church and that he was financing the church where he had become a member. When the devil learned this, he was upset and he got angry. He immediately punished some of my colleagues who died on the spot. The devil said to me, "You are a traitor and a liar. You have been hiding the truth from me. How can this man become a Christian and go to the point of financing his church? You have lied to me. You failed in this mission." Beloved, Jesus restored this man financially to the great stupefaction of Satan, who branded us as traitors. On this day I was saved from the fury of Satan because the Lord knew me from the womb of my mother, but one of our colleagues had to pay with his life. Chapter 11 The Mystery of the Minister of Fire. In occult practice, I had reached a level where no preaching and no pastor could convert me. One day there was an incident in the country. In fact, there was a pastor who had burned the Quran in public television. As a result, there was a massive reaction on the part of the country's Islamic community, who threw themselves into a protest and they marched in the country to display their anger. There was so much threat from the Muslims in the country that the government decided to arrest this man of God to calm the tension. So this popular pastor of the country that had burned the Quran was imprisoned in the central prison. To tell the truth, this was a security measure to restore calm in the country. The burning of the Islamic book called Quran had also generated a reaction in the satanic world. So there was anger in the spirit world because this religion belongs to the devil. Without delay, the devil convened an emergency meeting in the invisible world. In this meeting, the devil told me, "Peter, I entrust to you the mission of destroying this pastor because he dared to burn our sacred book." He said to me, "You have at your disposal 365 demons, and you also have the support of 4 spirits of power positioned in the 4 corners of the earth." Thus the devil charged me to destroy this pastor who had burned one of his books. When it was time to launch the assault against this pastor who was incarcerated in the central prison of the city, I sent the 365 demons to destroy him. As soon as these demons left, a few minutes later, they came back to report on the progress of this operation. It was obvious they were not successful in destroying this pastor. They started to explain why they could not do anything against this pastor. They told me, "Master Peter, there is nothing we can do about this man of God." When we got around his cell in the prison, we found that this pastor was a pillar of fire. Even the walls of his cell were burning with the fiery flames of fire. So we could not approach him because of the flames of fire that enveloped him. After this defeat, I went to see the 4 demons who control the water, the air, the fire, and the earth. I let them know about the mission that the Master Lucifer had entrusted me against this pastor who burned the Quran. Later, these 4 spirits went to the central prison to try to neutralize this pastor. Not long after going to the prison where the man of God was, they came back to me, and they said to me, "This man of God is mysterious. He is different from ordinary humans because his body is fire. His flesh is fiery. There is fire in his eyes. And when he speaks, fire comes out of his mouth." In fact, we found him singing and praising God in his cell, and a fire was coming out of his mouth, and the whole of his prison cell was in flames. There is nothing we can do. When I called my wife, the mermaid of the river, and I asked my wife, the mermaid, to go to the central prison and do something against that pastor, the latter told me, "Peter, the 4 spirits that you sent against this pastor are more powerful than me. If they have not managed to neutralize him, there is nothing I can do against him." Later, I told the devil all about this pastor. He told me, "This man of God is mysterious. Sometimes he appears like a tree, sometimes a stone or a monster. However, it is mystical." Chapter 12, My Conversion to the Lord Jesus Christ. A week later, I was in my mystical room where I make invocations and where I killed people mystically. I was in this room when suddenly I heard a thunderous and explosive voice that was not of this earth. It was the Lord Jesus Christ himself. He said to me, "My servant Peter, I am calling you to become my servant and to travel around the world to testify. But if you continue with your witchcraft and your murderous activity, I'll have to kill you." Jesus said to me, "As you know how to bind people and how to release them, I send you to release them. Many of my people are bound." Jesus said, "I am the God of Adina Barna." I did not know who Jesus was talking about, but he was the pastor of the church where I became a member, where I was trained. On that day I came to Jesus Christ. My decision to come to Jesus Christ was a result of a conflict with Lucifer, like many Christians. In fact, there was a war in heaven and Lucifer was driven out. After his fall he declared himself the God of this world. Every man who comes to Jesus Christ is in conflict with the devil and his army. The Christians are fighting against an enemy who is invisible. They have to study him, his tactics and his weapons for fear of being a victim of his device. When I got to Christ, I became pastor of a Pentecostal ministry. I was praying, counseling and delivering people. But in the night after the service, I was receiving Lucifer's phone calls. Every day after the service, the devil was calling me on the phone. And when I was picking up the phone to ask who is calling me, he replied to me, "The one calling you is your God and your King." He said to me, "Peter, whatever you do, I am your God, your King, and your Master. Whether you like it or not, you must know that I am your God." The devil said, "Even the phone that you are using belongs to me, because I am the God of this world." Beloved, even before the appearance on earth of the technology of mobile telephony and computers, these gadgets were already in circulation and in use in the parallel world of Satan. Whenever the devil was calling me on the phone when I quoted the name of Jesus Christ, he was cutting off the line. One day I was at home. When I was looking out through the windows, I saw the devil outside in my compound. He told me, "Peter, I will capture you." In the invisible world, we have posted notices of search and posters of your photo and rewards for the one who will capture you. We have put cash on your head, and anyone who will capture you will be rewarded. And I promise you that I would have you. Given that I knew Satan's strategy, I knew that if I opened the door by means of sin, sexual immorality, he could have me. So the fear of committing sin, the prayer, and attachment to Jesus are my weapons against him, and he cannot do anything against me. In fact, one day while I was testifying in the eastern region, in a stadium of the country, I saw a number of charlatans who decided to come to attack me. When I was on the verge of testifying, there was a sudden change of weather. The rain was threatening to disperse the crowd. The pastor who invited me was agitated. He asked, "What are we going to do? Where are we going to put the crowd of people?" Later, when I stood in front of the pulpit, I said, "As long as I testify of the Lord Jesus Christ, the rain will fall in the city, but the rain will not fall in the stadium." On that day it rained in the city but not in the stadium. But despite everything, these charlatans have decided to take action. They asked their leader, who was a boy of 12 years, to come after me. I could not see him because he was coming from behind to hit me mysteriously with a hammer, but I could not see him. He was coming to me. And when he reached a few meters from the place where I was preaching, he fell on the ground because he felt as if someone had struck him in the head with a stick. When he fell to the ground, he was bleeding in the nose, in the mouth, and in the ears. He told me, "I'm the head of the sorcerers. I am sent to execute you. I came to hit you with an invisible hammer. I was supposed to hit you with this hammer today." That day, more than 600 people were saved. That day, many Muslims and marabouts came to Jesus.